Saladin executes Renaud himself and captures one of the most holy relics in all of Christianity, a fragment of the true cross, the very cross Jesus was crucified on as his prize. Weeks later, he goes on to recapture Jerusalem, and he begins planning to permanently remove all Christians from the land. Back in Europe, the Pope issues a call for a third crusade to reclaim the Holy City, and kings from the greatest Christian empires begin to take up the cross. Around this time, a young prince named Richard I betrays his father and becomes the King of England. With his throne secured, he joins the crusade and sets his sights on his next glorious conquest, the reclaiming of the true cross and the city of Jerusalem from the Muslims. And so in 1191, Richard and his army set sail for the Middle East. He has no idea that soon he'll be locked in a deadly life-or-death showdown against the most formidable foe he has ever faced. The stage is set for the greatest rivalry in the history of mankind, a legendary warrior king versus a genius tactical strategist. This is the story of Richard the Lionheart and Saladin. In 1189, following the fall of Jerusalem, Crusaders in the Holy Land began a siege on the Muslim port city of Acre. The fighting is fierce, with both the Christians and Muslims fully understanding the importance of the city, and momentum swings back and forth daily. Eventually, the Muslim defenders are cut off from their supply lines, and they offer to surrender peacefully, but the Crusaders, hoping for a glorious victory, deny their requests. But the tides of war shift when Saladin arrives with his army. He quickly surrounds the once confident Crusaders, and now they're forced to deal with constant attacks from the city walls in front of them and horse archers sent in by Saladin in their rear. This stagnant double siege situation drags on for a year, and the Crusaders outside the city and the Muslim defenders inside the city begin to starve. The winter of 1190 is brutal, and many of the Christians begin to die from sickness and starvation. It seems the campaign at Acre is headed for failure, and they pray to God to save them. And their prayers are answered in the spring of 1191 when King Philip of France arrives, quickly followed by his frenemy, the newly crowned King Richard of England. Sensing victory is near, the Crusaders celebrate the arrival of the kings, until they see that they're both super sick from their journey and can't fight just yet. While rolling around sick in bed, King Richard sends his first message to Saladin.
Dear Saladin, I, Richard I, King of England, and soon all of France as well, request your presence to discuss your surrender of Acre and our holy city of Jerusalem. Oh, and also, can you, send some fruit, please, because I'm feeling quite ill. Thanks!
What the fuck? Saladin sends the fruit, but he rejects the meeting, insulted that some kid who's half his age is treating him like an equal. A month goes by, and Philip finally recovers, and he begins his assault on the city in early July. His siege engines pepper Acre's walls, and the defenders signal to Saladin that they may not last much longer. Saladin responds by ordering his men to increase their attacks on the Crusaders, but Philip's presence at Acre seems to have been just what the Crusaders needed to finally take the city. And it's at this point in the story where we really begin to see just what kind of person Richard was. See, he's still super sick, but he can't stand the thought of Philip getting all the glory, so he sets up his own massive catapults, which were named, and I quote, God's own catapult and the bad neighbor, and he begins firing at the city to steal some of Philip's thunder. Richard then orders his men to carry him out on a stretcher near the front lines, and he begins shooting at the defenders with a crossbow while lying down, still looking half dead. The combined Crusader forces break through the city walls, and the defenders desperately plead for Saladin's help. The Muslims in Acre mount one final defense on July 11th, but by the next day, the city was captured and the Christians take the defenders hostage. Richard sets the terms for the surrender. He wants Saladin to return the true cross, along with 200,000 gold pieces and 1,600 previously captured Christian prisoners. In exchange, they'll return their 2,700 captured defenders from Acre. Richard gives Saladin a deadline and waits. King Philip and some other lords, having checked go crusading off their bucket list, return to Europe, leaving Richard to collect the spoils. But negotiations soon break down as both sides begin to demand their hostages be returned first, and Saladin ends up missing the deadline. This infuriates Richard, and he aims to send a message to the Sultan of the consequences of messing with the wrong dick. He has his men gather up the 2,700 Muslim prisoners, and he marches them up a hill called Ayadiyah.